Isaiah 1 to 4. Well, let's begin reading the book of Isaiah now, because we remember how we ended last time with this king in the south named Azariah or Uzziah. We learned in chapter 6 of Isaiah that in the year that this king dies, which is 740 BC, that a man called Isaiah is given a call by God to be a court prophet for the next three kings that come in the south. They will be, and we'll talk about these men later, but Jotham, a good king, Ahaz, a bad king, and Hezekiah, who is again a good king. So the man is Isaiah. He will have a long ministry. This will be about 50 years of being the court prophet for these three kings. We don't know much about him as a person. We know he lives in Jerusalem. We know he's a married man with 2 children. But otherwise, everything we know about him is in this great book. The reason Isaiah is so well known is because it's quoted so commonly in the New Testament, some very famous passages which we will see. So now we'll work our way through the book of Isaiah, because he is now speaking to the southern kingdom and remember what we just saw in the north, in 740, by means of comparison in 722, 18 years later from here, 18 years from this moment, the northern kingdom will be taken into subjection by Assyria. So what Isaiah will be saying to the south will be to basically compare the southern kingdom to what God is allowing to happen in the northern kingdom, and basically saying, let's not see what the northern kingdom has done happen down here in the south. In fact, let me think of 2 basic themes that come out of the book of Isaiah, and we find them in Isaiah 1 and chapter 2. And so I can speak of them here just as we close. This is in Isaiah 1, beginning in verse 16. Wash yourselves, make yourselves clean, and put away the evil of your doings from before my eyes. Cease to do evil, learn to do good, seek justice, rebuke the oppressor, defend the fatherless, plead for the widow. The very opposite of things that are happening here, Isaiah says we need to start doing it down here. So we could say one of the great themes of the book of Isaiah is warning the nation of the south to not repeat the mistakes of the north. But another theme is going to come out that's equally strong, and here it is in chapter 2, beginning in verse 2. Now it shall come to pass in the latter days that the mountain of the Lord's house shall be established on the top of the mountains, and shall be exalted above the hills, and all the nations shall flow into it. To the house of the God of Jacob, he will teach us his ways, and we shall walk in his paths. For out of Zion shall go forth the law and the word of the Lord. From Jerusalem he shall judge between the nations, and rebuke many people. They shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. The point being that there will be a period, and this is almost the opposite of the warning idea, there will be a period of return to Yahweh, that the people of the south, or a group, someone that he's speaking to, we don't have a number, we have a remnant or a leftover group that he will be talking of, it seems, that will become faithful to Yahweh. And in fact, their faithfulness will be seen in that great line where they'll be able to take their swords and beat them into plowshares, because they won't need to defend their land anymore from outside enemies. God will give them a land of peace, and they'll be able to simply live in peacefulness because of their faithfulness to Yahweh. So these 2 almost opposite themes are going to be coming out in this long book. What is the relationship of these 2? It's found in a great theme, actually, that starts here in chapter 2, verse 12 of Isaiah. The first mention of it, it's called the Day of the Lord. The Day of Yahweh. And listen to how it's described in Isaiah 2:12. For the day of the Lord of hosts shall come upon everything proud and lofty, upon everything lifted up, and it shall be brought low. Isaiah 13. Wail, for the day of the Lord is at hand. It will come as destruction from the Almighty. Behold, the day of the Lord comes, cruel with both wrath and fierce anger. The point being that if you're a sinner, it will be a period of wrath to you, but it will become a means of getting the promise on the other side, where the nation will be loyal. Now, the reason this is important, and again, this is the first mention of it in our biblical story. It'll be some 50 more mentions of it just within the prophets themselves coming up. Why is this day of the Lord so important? Well, when we get to the New Testament, we will hear of this idea. Well, in our tradition, if you've been a believer and been a part of church during your life, you've heard of it called heaven, going to heaven when you die. In the Bible, it's called the day of the Lord, or the idea of the beginning of the end, or the next world. The beginning of the next world is called the day of the Lord. Here are 2 verses from the New Testament, 1 Thessalonians 5:2. For you yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord comes as a thief in the night. Same idea. We will be living here, and someday, all of a sudden, we will be in the next phase of our experience. And then 2 Peter 3:10, but the day of the Lord will come as a thief in the night, in which the heavens will pass away with a great noise, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Both the earth and the works that are in it will be burned up. So the reason the day of the Lord, of course, becomes so important to our story, not just because this is the first mention of it, this is the means by which the world will end as we know it, and a new world will begin.